Disregarding the potential dangers posed by wild animals is a lesson learned when it's too late. In the heart of Africa, the pulse of life beats within the untamed African wilderness. The biodiversity of this continent is unlike any in the world. Wild animals roam the golden savannas, running rivers, lush rainforests, and expansive deserts. Human attempts to tame this wilderness have been futile and have often ended in tragedy. Please click the subscribe and like buttons. This is horrific animal disasters. The African wilderness is adorned with an astonishing array of wildlife. Elephants roam, lions command their pride, and herds of wildebeest embark on epic migrations that symbolize life's eternal ebb and flow. It is within this natural sanctuary that the spirit of Africa thrives. In the African wilderness, the intricate balance of predator and prey, the silent footprints of elusive big cats, the crocodile's killer instinct, and the hippo's savageness tell a tale of resilience, adaptation, and the interconnectedness of all living things. Within this wilderness lies the Zambezi River, the most biodiverse river on Earth. With the myriad of predators that call this river their home, you're bound to run into danger when visiting this river. For Alistair Gellatly and his cohort, their Zambezi trip would be horrific. Alistair Gellatly, aged 39 at the time, brought a wealth of experience as a seasoned safari guide, having lived extensively alongside the Zambezi. In April 1994, he embarked on an expedition with a group that included his longtime friend Arthur Taylor, a safari guide as well, along with Arthur's English wife, Faye, and her visiting parents, Clive and Brenda, retired teachers from England. Their goal was to cherish their final day together on the Zambezi River, engaging in a fishing adventure before family commitments took precedence. Brenda joined the expedition despite initial hesitations, infusing a celebratory atmosphere into what would otherwise be an uneventful fishing trip. The bond between Arthur Taylor and Alistair extended over 25 years. Arthur expressed, "Our kids have grown up together with Alistair. Basically, Alistair is part of the family. He's a very good guy in a crisis and a very good friend. We've known each other a while and spent a lot of time together." Armed with picnic lunches and fishing rods, Alistair Gellatly and the family of four set out on the Zambezi River for a serene day of fishing. Navigating the remote stretches of the Zambezi, the group captured moments of tranquility and excitement, observing the rich biodiversity of the African wilderness. Their journey unfolded amidst Cape buffaloes, sunbathing crocodiles, snorting hippos, and elephants wallowing in muddy shallows. Alistair, with his extensive background as a safari guide, observed these creatures without concern, knowing the importance of giving them ample space. As the day progressed, the group experienced a relatively uneventful fishing trip, with minimal success in catching fish. However, the tranquility would soon be shattered. Out of nowhere, the boat violently thrust into the air, catapulting Clive and Faye in opposite directions. It became apparent that a hippo had attacked their vessel. Clive vividly heard the scraping of its yellow tusks against the fiberglass as the hippo clamped its jaws onto the boat's side. With a powerful toss of its head, the 2-ton beast flipped the boat upside down, effectively defending its territory. Having accomplished its mission, the hippo retreated with a snort. Amidst the chaos, Arthur and Faye, unable to swim, found themselves trapped beneath the overturned boat. Alistair and Clive, however, managed to grab the trailing rope, allowing them to clamber atop the hull, which had settled in the water with its nose still visible. Alistair positioned himself on the bow, protruding from the water, assessing the situation. The boat was stranded 100 yards or 90 meters from the shore. Its heavier back end is stuck at the river's bottom. Despite everyone being safe at the moment, they were now in one of the most crocodile-infested rivers globally. Alistair formulated a plan, aware of a fishing camp 3 miles downstream on the far side of the river. He proposed swimming to the nearer bank, walking downriver, and shouting across. Although he had observed numerous crocodiles that morning, he didn't find the prospect of swimming with flat dogs overly concerning, given that it was only noon, and the crocodiles seemed lazily sunbathing on the riverbanks. The group's chances of rescue in this remote river stretch were slim, and Alistair, as the single man in the group, decided to take a calculated risk, well aware of the hundreds of annual crocodile attack fatalities on the Zambezi. "I'm going for help," Alistair told the group, Minimizing splashes, he swam discreetly across the river toward a marshy inlet. However, as he approached, a gray form glided into the water. Alistair halted, treading water. The crocodile stared back at him, obstructing his path to the bank. Shouting and smacking the water's surface, Alistair charged at the crocodile to intimidate it. The creature submerged out of sight. Alistair submerged to locate the animal, but was blinded by the mud cloud he had stirred up. In a frantic state, he hastily retreated into clear water and submerged again. The 2.5-meter creature approached him like a torpedo. Swiftly, Alistair lifted his legs, feeling the crocodile brush against his feet as it disappeared into the murky water. Suddenly, it looped back, its robust tail striking Alistair in the back. Gasp after surfacing, Alistair plunged once more, opening his eyes to find himself staring into the crocodile's open mouth with rows of gleaming yellow-brown teeth. Like a colossal mousetrap, the croc's jaws clamped onto both of Alistair's arms. Despite the excruciating pain, he managed to take a final breath as the crocodile pulled him underwater. Alistair succeeded in freeing his left hand, but the reptile firmly grasped his right forearm, swimming backward and dragging him into deeper water. The crocodile twirled its body, swirling the 200-pound or 90-kilo man around like a rag doll. Alistair felt his right forearm snap and his elbow and shoulder dislocate. A brief pause ensued, then Alistair realized the crocodile was turning again. The croc's scaly armor scraped against Alistair's thighs. Instinctively, he wrapped both legs around its belly and secured his ankles behind its back. As the creature rolled, he rolled with it, locked in a fatal embrace as they sank into deeper water. Alistair's forceful punches with his left fist merely glanced off the tough hide. Throughout the ordeal, the reptile continued shaking, and with each shake, blood spurted from Alistair's arm, staining the water red. Alistair's lungs screamed for air, and in desperation, he inserted his free arm into the reptile's mouth, hoping to induce a gag reflex. Sharp teeth ripped his flesh as he pushed his hand deeper. His fingers encountered a rubbery flap at the back of the throat. The crocodile spasmed, its jaws involuntarily opening just long enough for Alistair to jerk his arms free. Paddling as effectively as possible with his sole functional arm, Alistair emerged on the surface. Upon reaching the bank, he lay there, gasping, completely drained. His right forearm presented a gruesome sight, adorned with deep, jagged wounds, twisted joints, and a fractured bone. Stirred to action, he impaled a sharp stick through his shirt sleeve and tightly twisted it to stem the bleeding. In a dazed and weakened state, Alistair rose to his feet and staggered into the bush, resolute in continuing his plan to seek assistance. A few yards inland, he confronted a steep slope covered with scrub. Painfully navigating to the top, he suddenly lost consciousness. Upon awakening, he managed to cover a few more yards, but a gully obstructed his path. Sliding down the slope once again, he traced the riverbank. From there, he could spot 3 of his friends on the sandbank and 1 on the upturned boat. "A croc got me," he shouted across the river. "I'm okay, but I need to rest." Realizing the critical condition of his friend, Arthur took matters into his own hands. "I walked towards the Zimbabwe side of the river to see if we could swim across there," Arthur recounted. However, every 10 meters, a crocodile lay on the riverbank, making it clear that reaching Alistair would be impossible without jeopardizing his life. Alistair knelt beside the water, tending to his injured arm by washing and wrapping it in an improvised bandage before lying down. The natural pain relief he had been experiencing was wearing off, and the full impact of his injuries was setting in. Every slight movement caused him excruciating agony. His sole hope was to endure until morning and then attempt to reach the nearby camp. Clive, stranded on the overturned boat witnessing the attack, felt disheartened seeing Alistair, realizing that their rescue wouldn't happen that day. As the boat began to sink, Clive, stuck in the middle of the river, faced a precarious situation. Understanding her father's predicament, Faye knew he couldn't last long on the sinking boat. "I know my dad had no choice but to swim because if the boat went down in the night, then he would just disappear. He wouldn't have stood a chance," she recalled. The family watched on in horror as Clive jumped into the river, not knowing at any moment when he was going to be taken by a crocodile. Clive struggled against the erratic currents of the Zambezi. Although he was swimming as much as he could toward them, he was just drifting away. Clive struggled until he reached the sandbank with the rest of the family. Now, at least, everyone was together. However, the sight of a sizable crocodile sunning itself on the riverbank and the memory of Alistair's ordeal dashed any thoughts of swimming for the shore. Their best chance of survival still rested with Alistair. As night approached, the group faced the daunting prospect of a perilous night with no hope of rescue. The family felt a profound sense of helplessness, knowing Alistair was lying there, bleeding, and they were powerless to aid him. The group refrained from calling out to Alistair as the hyenas began their calls, recognizing the heightened danger during the night when predators could detect blood from miles away. Huddled together in the river, they remained vigilant in all directions, acutely aware of the significant risk of crocodile attacks during the night. The darkness underscored their vulnerability, emphasizing their lack of control in the vast wilderness. The area is so remote that the chances are very slim. You're very lucky if help does come your way out there, Arthur said. As night fell, the cold wind heightened their discomfort. There you are in extreme danger by standing in the river, because there's a very good chance that a crocodile will come and get you during the night, Arthur proclaimed. The group's heightened senses led them to mistake floating vegetation for a potential threat, with Arthur bravely swinging a paddle to fend it off. The darkness all around us just seemed to make you realize just how vulnerable you were in that great vastness. You were nothing, and things were just out of your control, Faye said. It passed everybody's mind that there's a good chance that they may not make it till the morning. Suddenly they hear a slapping sound in the water. They spotted a croc's scales on the back of its tail. The croc comes towards the sandbank. Arthur, showing great courage, swung the paddle at the croc, effectively beating it off and saving his family. We were on tenterhooks after that, looking around in case another crocodile did come by, Faye recalled. In the grip of alternating consciousness and pain, Alistair observed the encroaching darkness and the onset of the time when predators began their nocturnal prowls. Anticipating a challenging night, he gathered stones, intending to have a means of defense if anything approached during the impending darkness. I just got these stones together so that if something did come up that night, I could at least throw a rock at it when it got really dark, he recalled. From the downstream direction, a bone-chilling sequence of deep, throaty roars resonated, met by responsive roars from other lions communicating with each other. Subsequently, the yowling of hyenas, adept at detecting the scent of wounded animals from afar, reached Alistair's ears. While Alistair had experienced nights alone in the bush before, it was never without the comforting presence of a fire and a firearm. The blood trail he had left behind now served as an unmistakable guide for potential predators. As Alistair fought off the encroaching drowsiness, a nearby loud roar jolted him, heightening his sense of imminent danger. The proximity of something potentially threatening seemed inevitable. Abruptly, the surroundings fell into an eerie silence, and Alistair's skin tingled with alertness. Aware that large predators tend to hush when closing in on their prey, he strained his ears, listening intently until his eyelids inevitably drooped shut. Alistair was abruptly awakened by an unfamiliar sound. The resonant breaths and deliberate footfalls grew louder, drawing closer to him. Stretching his neck, he discerned a striking sight, a pair of colossal curving horns. Recognizing a Cape buffalo was in his vicinity. A solitary bull buffalo is widely regarded as one of the most formidable animals in Africa. Positioned about 20 yards or 18 meters away in the clearing, the buffalo raised its muzzle to detect Alistair's scent, showcasing its massive horns spanning over 3 feet. The mere hook of one of these horns had the potential to launch a person into the air, a hazard well known in the hunting world where tales abound of individuals gored or trampled by these colossal beasts. Immobility constraining him, Alistair sat up and hurled a stone at the buffalo, striking it on the head. Surprisingly, the buffalo merely shook its head, seemingly unfazed, and advanced closer. Coming to a halt at a distance of 30 feet or 9 meters, the buffalo fixed its gaze upon Alistair. Subsequently, it deliberately folded its front legs and, emitting a grunting sigh, reclined its colossal bulk. To Alistair's amazement, the buffalo began chewing cud, its attention focused on the bushy ridge above, the same direction Alistair had been vigilantly observing throughout the night. After pondering the peculiar situation for some time, Alistair could only surmise one explanation: the buffalo was guarding him. Eventually, the fatigued and injured man succumbed to sleep. Meanwhile, stranded on the sandbar in the midst of the Zambezi River, the family endured the physical toll of prolonged standing, with aching backs and the biting chill setting in. Arthur, recognizing the relatively warmer conditions in the water, contemplated sitting down, only to be cautioned by Faye about the risk of hypothermia. Bearing in mind their responsibilities to two awaiting children at home, they persevered, determined to endure the challenges of the night. As the morning sun finally graced the horizon, a palpable sense of relief washed over the family. However, lingering concerns about Alistair prompted them to shout out for him, anxiously awaiting a response that never came. Meanwhile, Alistair jolted awake, sensing a stinging sensation on his bare chest. He felt the presence of red ants crawling in his armpits, on his face, and in his wounds, delivering hundreds of bites and stings. In pain, he shouted and hastily brushed the insects away, causing the buffalo to snort in alarm. Alistair stood frozen until the creature resumed its placid chewing. Surprisingly, the ant bites injected a rush of adrenaline, giving him a vital boost and saving his life. Rejuvenated by his rest, Alistair reflected on his predicament. Drawing on his experience as a guide, he recalled instances of animals altruistically aiding those of different species. 24 hours after the crocodile attack, he was weak and disoriented. Alistair summoned great strength, got up, and continued his trek to find help. Hearing a distant boat, he dashed towards the river, yet found nothing. In the face of the crocodile threat, he succumbed to unconsciousness on the sandbank. Later, as he awoke, he realized he had indeed heard a boat. Spotting a couple across the river, he tried to call out, but was too feeble to make a sound. Unaware of Alistair's perilous condition, the couple floated away. But miraculously, hours later, the same couple returned and noticed Alistair on the river beach, on the brink of death. Their timely intervention led to Alistair's rescue and eventual safety. Meanwhile, Arthur and his family remained stranded on the sandbank, uncertain of their fate. Suddenly, Faye spotted a distant sight, two individuals canoeing down the river. They had seen us and they thought, well, what strange people fishing in the middle of the river. Oh, I can't tell you how that felt, really. It was just a sense of relief. We were going to be all right. It was also still a worry for Alistair. We hadn't heard from Alistair for several hours. They were eventually reunited with Alistair. Initial aid was administered and air rescue services were summoned for Alistair. However, the first plane encountered mechanical issues, and only that evening did another aircraft arrive to transport Alistair to the Zimbabwe capital, Harare, where he underwent surgery. Subsequent procedures, including skin grafts, saved his arm, albeit with reduced flexibility, leading to a full recovery. Nonetheless, the memory of that perilous day when he teetered on the brink of death stayed with him forever, until his death in 2015. He recalled, "Something really special happened that night. A hippo tried to drown me, a crocodile almost ate me, and then a buffalo helped me to survive. I don't suppose anyone will ever be able to explain that act of mercy, but I will never forget it." Surviving a crocodile attack is challenging, as these animals are powerful and dangerous predators. Stay informed about crocodile habitats and avoid swimming or entering waters known to be inhabited by crocodiles. Be cautious around riverbanks, estuaries, and areas with thick vegetation where crocodiles may hide. Listen for any splashes or unusual sounds in the water that may indicate the presence of a crocodile. Move slowly and avoid sudden jerky movements, as this can attract a crocodile's attention. If you see a crocodile at a distance, move away slowly without turning your back on it. If a crocodile approaches you, slowly back away and avoid sudden movements. Maintain eye contact with the crocodile as you retreat. If a crocodile attacks, try to protect your head and neck, as these are the most vulnerable areas. If you find yourself in the jaws of a crocodile, fight back aggressively. Aim for the eyes, nostrils, or throat, as these are sensitive areas. Vital tips so you can make it through a horrific animal disaster.